As a pet owner, you're likely caught between two frustrating extremes: losing trust in the dry, gray pellets sold at the store, or facing the overwhelming complexity of balancing a homemade diet from scratch. But there is a middle ground. By following a veterinarian-endorsed system, you can prep 14 perfectly balanced meals for your dog with less than an hour of active work. To pull this off, you need the right hardware. We're using a large-capacity slow cooker, a food processor, a standard kitchen scale, and a microscale for precise gram measurements. Transitioning a dog to a biologically appropriate diet doesn't require culinary mastery. It requires strict adherence to specific nutrient ratios and process optimization. Let's start the clock. Step 1 is building our bulk caloric foundation. We're starting with 3¼ pounds of 90-10 lean ground beef. Keeping the fat ratio low prevents dangerous caloric overload while providing the main protein source. Next, we add 18 scrambled eggs to build a complete amino acid profile. But there is a strict rule here: do not include the eggshells. This diagram illustrates what happens inside your dog's digestive tract when they consume unregulated calcium from shells. The excess particles bind together, creating dense, white blockages that cause painful, chalk-like impactions. For our carbohydrate matrix, we're using frozen broccoli, spinach, and bell peppers. Frozen produce is often superior to fresh here because the vegetables are flash frozen at peak harvest, locking in the nutrients before they degrade. Dogs have short, relatively inefficient digestive tracts for plant matter. By mechanically pulverizing these vegetables in a food processor, we break down the tough cellular walls so your dog can actually absorb the vitamins inside. We do the exact same thing with our raw beef liver. Processing it into a homogeneous paste prevents texture-based rejection from picky eaters who might normally spit out a chunk of raw organ meat. By mechanically destroying the physical structure of both the raw vegetables and the organ meats, we bypass the dog's palate while maximizing nutrient bioavailability at the cellular level. Now we transition to the marine layer. We add a tin of whole sardines, deliberately retaining the packing water. That liquid holds a high concentration of water-soluble omega-3 fatty acids, which we want to capture. Contrast that immediately with our oysters. Because canned oysters are packed in heavily salted water, they must be strictly drained and rinsed to strip away toxic sodium levels before they go into the pot. Next, we pour in 11 ounces of uncooked Italian barley. This functions strictly as a mechanical fiber vehicle to keep digestion moving smoothly rather than a primary nutrient driver. At this point, the bulk assembly is done. We are now entering the precision supplementation phase, which requires a complete shift from volumetric eyeballing to exact gram-level scale measurements. We start with exactly 52 grams of bone meal powder. This serves as our highly controlled bioavailable calcium alternative to those dangerous eggshells we avoided earlier. Then, 9 drops of liquid vitamin E. This serves a dual function. It meets a core biological necessity for the dog and acts as a chemical shield to extend the time before the fats in the meat go rancid. Next, we add 4 grams of nutritional yeast for B vitamins. It is critical to note this is a deactivated yeast. Active bread yeast is highly toxic to dogs and should never be used in their food. Using the microscale, we measure exactly 1 gram of regular table salt. This is strictly to fulfill the dog's systemic chloride requirements and is completely divorced from adding culinary flavor. Finally, we complete the chemical profile by adding 11 microscoops of kelp powder to satisfy the baseline iodine thresholds for healthy thyroid function. This chart shows the dietary profile of our mixture. While the bulk meats sustain the animal's physical mass, it is this exact microscopic matrix of carefully measured supplements that prevents long-term organ failure and systemic deficiencies. Give the entire raw mixture a thorough stir to homogenize the ingredients. Then set the slow cooker to run a low-temperature thermal cycle for 2 to 4 hours. By cooking the food inside a covered slow cooker, we create a closed-loop environment. This prevents the atmospheric loss of degrading vitamins that typically evaporate into the air when cooking in an open pan. Once the cycle finishes, check the post-cook state. The raw proteins will have completely integrated, and the dry barley will have fully absorbed the ambient internal moisture. Now we execute the physical portioning protocol. Distribute the mass evenly across 14 identical vessels. This represents exactly 7 days of twice-daily feeding for a 50-pound dog. If there is any residual liquid pooled at the bottom of the cooker, you must recover it and divide it among the containers. That liquid is a carrier for leached water-soluble vitamins from the vegetables and meats. Abandoning this cooking fluid in the pot is mathematically equivalent to deleting a percentage of your carefully formulated nutritional profile. Everything in the pot goes into the dog. Here's the completed operational payload: 14 precisely calibrated, biologically complete meals secured and ready for cold storage. Let's break down the raw financial data of the operation. Sourcing the meat, vegetables, and precise supplements for this weekly batch brings the total material cost to $47.78. This chart maps that weekly data across a macro timeline. Multiplying that batch 4 times establishes a hard monthly burn rate of $191 to sustain a standard 50-pound canine. Take a moment to evaluate that localized cost against your current pet food budget. Keep in mind that scaling this framework up or down relies on custom guides built for different weight classes, so the final number will adjust to your dog. Reclaiming complete control over your pet's internal biology requires an upfront investment of your time and precision, but executing this protocol yields a clear result: absolute trust in what goes into their bowl, and a measurable investment in their longevity.